Hey guys, Jonay here. So I'm back with another video. I've been playing around with BMS, the update to BMS 4.33. So I guess it would be BMS 4.33.1. I've been playing around with the Mavericks and stuff, and I've been noticing some kind of peculiarities and some that were carried over from BMS 4.33.0, but also some new things that are kind of strange. I don't know if they're realistic or supposed to be that way or if they're bugs. But I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. First thing I'm going to mention right off the hop, though, is you'll notice in the lower left corner there now, that whole video I made a few weeks ago about system delta in BMS 4.33, it looks like they've reverted back to using Bullseye, and you can see that it's two sets of 3 digits, and you can see in the lower left-hand corner it's also a Bullseye here, and same with over on the HSD. I made that video, the previous one about System Delta, I made that an unlisted video because I don't think it's relevant anymore, but I've heard that some blocks of F-16s might still use System Delta down the lower left indicators of these air-to-ground displays. I haven't had a chance to test all the blocks, and I don't plan to test all the blocks, but so just be aware of that. If you look down the lower left and you see a number that is like a set of 3 digits followed by a set of two, it's probably system delta, and just be aware of that when you're communicating with your wingman. But it looks like most blocks are going to be Bullseye down there. The other kind of strange thing I noticed is over in the HSD, this Bullseye down here, which I thought used to represent the cursor data, it doesn't really move with your cursor data anymore. So that seems to represent the bullseye of the steer point that you've got selected. There doesn't seem to be any bullseye that's tied to your cursor, which is kind of unfortunate because I used to like to, cursor over myself or over some kind of whatever action point that I'm trying to communicate to somebody and say, oh, they're at that bullseye. It was a nice little tool to use for a reference, but it doesn't look like that's the case anymore. I think it's still that way in air-to-air mode, though. So we'll go here, and yeah, you can see on the left here, this represents, what does that represent? I can't remember. Oh, that represents where our TGP is stabilized. I don't even know anymore. But you can see in the lower right there, the bullseye is tied to our cursor. So that it seems to be that way in air-to-air mode, but for whatever reason in air-to-ground mode, it's not that way. I don't know. It's kind of weird, man. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this up and just try to show you some of the things I was talking about. What do I want to find? I'm going to go into IR area mode. Let's use this tall, skinny building here to bore sight our Mavericks. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get an IR point on it. Go over to the weapon page, uncage a Maverick, and you can see there that it defaults a little bit off bore sight, which is totally natural. We're going to slew that down onto the building, and now look in the HUD. So now you can see the discrepancy that I've been trying to highlight here. In BMS 4.33.0, this circle in your HUD up there represented where your Maverick was actually looking. But you can see it actually doesn't match up with where the cross is looking, because the square box, which represents where the TGP is looking, is IR pointed right on the base of that tall, skinny building. So in 4.33.0, what you would do is you would slew the circle kind of on top of the square, and that would pretty much put the cross onto whatever target you were trying to bore sight onto. But in this case, they seem to be offset, which I don't know if that's supposed to be that way. It doesn't make much sense to me because, I mean, I think bore sighted or not, that circle should indicate where your Mavericks are looking. I mean, otherwise, logic would sort of dictate that you would need to bore sight your Mavericks, even if you were just planning to use Viz mode or bore sight mode or something, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. The Maverick shouldn't be out of line with itself. Bore sighting the Mavericks is to align the Maverick to the targeting pod, not to itself. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and lock this guy up, get my contrast lock, do my bore sight, go back over here, get myself another IR, and then I'll missile step, uncage a new guy, and you can see again, same exact thing. You see how the circle up in the HUD is not aligning with where the crosshairs are actually looking. It's way off to the left of the building when it should be right on it. Oh well, anyway, I just wanted to highlight that. And I'm going to go ahead and bore sight this guy. I'll cycle the master modes. So I should be good there. So now I'm going to move on to a later part of this video and show you another sort of peculiarity. All right, and we're back. So right now I've got steer point 3 selected, which is just ahead of me by about 5 miles or so. And you can see to the north up here, we got a big cluster of contacts. It's Kotar. So we're going to go ahead and lock that up. And now one thing I love to do, when I'm on a mission or something and I lock up a cluster of contacts, I love to make a mark point right on top of it just to give myself a good reference. So what we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to go ahead and hit 7 to get into mark point mode. And uh-oh, look at that. So instead of defaulting to the FCR sub-mode of the mark point master mode, it defaulted to HUD for some reason. Now, it only seems to do this when you've got Mavericks on the wing. You know, if I would have cluster bombs or some other kind of bomb, it would be no problem. That would have defaulted to the FCR mode and I could just TMS up and make my mark point. But for some reason with Mavericks, it defaults to the HUD. It's not a huge deal because what you can do, you can just, sequence yourself over to the FCR sub mode. And even though we don't have it actually locked up, we can go ahead and just hit TMS up and make ourselves a mark point there. So not a big deal. I just zeroed the cursor data and it snapped right to there. So we've got a mark point created there. Not a huge deal, but it's just, I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing. I don't know why it does that with Mavericks. It did that in BMS 4.33.0 as well. I was kind of hoping they would fix it in BMS 4.33.1, but it still seems to be a problem. So now we're going to go ahead and engage some things and test some ranges for these Mavericks. So first what I'm going to do actually is, let's get the TGP down there and go into TV area and find something to engage. I think I'm going to engage this target right here. So I'm going to make a TV point there and I'm going to make another mark point. And now notice that when you are TGP stabilized and you go to mark point mode, it does default to the proper sub mode. So it went to the sub mode, the TGP sub mode for mark point mode. No problems. I don't know why it doesn't really work for the FCR. It's got that little kind of hiccup. It defaults to HUD mode for some reason, but if you've got a TV point or an IR point on your TGP, then it works just fine apparently. So now I'm going to go ahead and make a mark point directly on this target, which we're going to be engaging. Oh yeah, it would help if I was in freeze instead of pause. TMS up, we've got it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 0 and select it. Cursor 0, and there we go, right on top of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and engage this target. First I'm going to get some turning room because I want to be a little bit further away from 11 miles and test what kind of ranges these Mavericks have. All right, so we're at 20 miles distance from the target. I'm going to turn back in and start engaging it. We've got ACMI recording. I'm going to stabilize and zoom in, get my IR point. There's the handoff. And rifle at 18 miles. Rifle at 16.
Rifle.
Rifle at 12.
Rifle.
Rifle at 10.
Rifle.
Rifle at about 7.5.
Altitude. Altitude.
Rifle at 5.
Rifle.
Dakota. You can see we still don't have any impacts yet. Mavericks are seem to be really slow, and they seem to be slow in BMS 4.33.0. There's some impacts now. They seem to be like even slower in the update though. There's another one. I mean, I outflew the missiles by quite a wide margin. I was way faster than them. Okay, I saw 2 impacts. And the other missiles might have been out of range. Oh, there's another super late impact. Yeah, it's kind of funny. You can theoretically shoot yourself with a Maverick in this game. If you were really unlucky, you could fly in front of it and get hit by it. I'm not sure if that's realistic or not. Anyway, I think all my missiles have either impacted or gone into the forest or detonated in the air. I'm gonna switch to the ACMI view in TAC view and show you what happened with the Mavericks flight paths. All right, guys, here we are in TAC view. We're going to review some of the missiles flight paths. So this is me in the center of the screen. The red contacts over here are Kotar, and to the east of us here is just a tanker. So just go ahead and ignore that guy. Let's go ahead and hit play and see what happens. And there's the first rifle at 18 miles. Comes off the wing at about Mach 1.3. Climbs immediately and decelerates pretty drastically. You know, once the rocket motor burns out, it's down to Mach 0.8 right away. And you can see that my second missile shot at 16 miles has already overtaken the first one. And I'm actually about to overtake the first missile shot as well. So Mavericks are pretty slow in this game. They seem to be really slow in BMS 4.33.0 as well, but I don't know, maybe it's just my imagination, but they seem to be even slower in 4.33.1. And you can see this missile is already down to, you know, Mach 0.35. It's amazing that it's airborne. So there's my third shot, rifle at 12 miles. And I have left this first shot in the dust and the second one. There's my fourth shot, rifle at 10 miles. The first shot has reached a low speed of Mach 0.29, and now it's actually starting to accelerate as it falls out of the sky. And there's a rifle at 7.5 miles. And rifle at 5 miles. Look how far back those first couple of shots are. Each progressive shot that I took is actually closer to the targets because I'm flying faster than the missiles. And the first shot that we took detonated far, far short of Kotar. So they actually time out and detonate in the air. And the second missile is just detonated in the air. Now the rifle shot I took at 5 miles impacted the target. Rifle shot at 7.5 has impacted the target. And the rifle shot I took at 12 miles has disintegrated. And the rifle shot at 10 miles looked like it's going to hit here. Yeah, and it made it. So it seems like the maximum effective range of Mavericks in BMS 4.33.1 is about 10 miles, give or take. Maybe you can alter that a little bit with some speed and altitude. I'm not sure. But it seems to be about 10 miles, which is, I don't know, it's kind of confusing to me. You know, I thought the whole point of bore sighting Mavericks to your TGP was so that you could acquire locks from further away and extend the range of your missile. You know, I know in BMS 4.33.0, I was getting good shacks on small ground targets from 15 miles away. No problem. In 4.33.1, it seems to be about 10 miles. So I don't know. I guess bore sighting your Mavericks at the end of the day in this new update of the game, all it's really for is just a little bit of convenience. You don't have to look at something in your TGP and then DMS over to your weapon page and then try to find the thing that you've got locked up. It just skips a couple of steps, but it really doesn't actually extend the standoff range of Mavericks at all, it seems. It seems like the flight models of the Mavericks themselves are like limited to pretty much around 10 miles. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you all around. Bye.